A lot of people look at me today and they see me on stage or they see me competing at high rocks events or running these crazy races. They're like, my gosh, of course you're in health. Health has been so easy for you. You've always had your health. This is just a part of what you do. Because it's your business, I guarantee you just work out all day. And none of that could actually be further from the truth. Is that going back all the way to when I was 8 years old, I just had this deep desire and this deep knowing that I just heard the voice of God say like, hey, you're going to be a part of the redemption story of the health of America. And it was a weight I was willing to pick up as a young child, but I didn't realize that that weight wasn't actually that I was going to be a doctor, wasn't actually that I was going to be thriving in my health, wasn't actually that I was going to have easy street and just be the expert, but rather that I was going to have to walk through some real fiery roads for a long time after having been, I was the fat kid. I was the fat kid everybody made fun of. I was the fat kid that had ADD and OCD tendencies. I was dyslexic. I was the weird kid that only was validated on the athletic field. From there, I became the anorexic kid that at 15, 16 had his kidneys and liver shut down and had to be fed through feeding tubes and threatened to be admitted to hospitals just to be able to actually get back to what was necessary. The addicted kid became the depressed kid, the suicidal kid, the kid that was addicted to pain pills, the guy that couldn't figure out where he wanted to go, but yet lived this secret life behind, all while being athletic. And so that was the story of what I had to walk through that led me to my 2 undergraduate degrees, my master's degree, my postgraduate doctoral research, my work in functional medicine, my work in massage therapy, all simply for the pursuit of an answer as to why was I like this? Why was I operating this way? Why did my body do this to me? Why was I in this place? Because when I step back to it, I go to all those doctors I went to. I felt completely unheard, completely unseen, quite frankly, gaslit in a lot of rooms because it was just what's broken, how do we fix it, and what's wrong with you? Rather than realizing I was a human being, something was going on. I didn't know what was going on. More than anything, I was just confused and irritated and really wanting just to feel better. And so that was the first start of my journey that led me to really working in the NCAA and the NHL, creating these N of one solutions, treating people in a data-driven way, but a human-focused way. Realizing that when you understand the language of the body, when you understand the human being, the person, the way that God created you, you can actually put yourself in environments to allow yourself to heal itself. And doing this for 10 years and being on the road and living the lifestyle of what professional sports does took a toll. And at 30 years old, 32 actually, I started to have brain fog that I've never had before. I started to bloat every single time I ate. I started to have headaches that wouldn't go away. I started to fall asleep, not stay asleep. I started to have anxieties that would come up periodically. And I was like, my gosh, like what's going on? And so again, I was like, this is 15 years after this big mess that I had been through as a teenager. And I guarantee you there has to be things that have changed. I've got the best doctors in the NHL now. They've got to be able to look at me differently. They'd run all my tests. They say, no, you're perfectly fine. I don't know what's wrong. I was like, okay, well, functional medicine's a thing now. So let me go to a functional medicine doc. Went in there. They said, hey, take all these tests. Here's a $5,000 bill. We got the results. Here's a bag of supplements. That'll be another $3,000. I still remember my wife and I, we were traveling over to Hawaii during this time, and I had a whole suitcase just for my supplements, just to try to feel okay. Didn't solve anything. And then I remember I was in Chicago. We just played the Blackhawks. I was laying in a hotel, and I shot up like a bolt of lightning in the middle of the night. And I heard the voice of God literally say, why don't you do that same thing on you that you do on your athletes? And it was, look at the data, look at the numbers that I was looking at. And it was at that moment that I started to actually track this stuff: heart rate variability, sleep quality, cellular deficiencies, VO2 max, some key metric as to how our body's operating cellularly. And everything was low. And that prompted me to go and get a couple more screenings done. And they found 4 precancerous polyps in my colon and precancerous ulcer in my stomach, basically told I wouldn't see 35. And that was the moment that, again, God just redirected me and said, hey, I need you to stop serving the audience that you want to serve and serve the audience that I've called you to, because this isn't an athlete problem. This is a human problem. And I've asked you as that 8-year-old boy to solve it. And we've gone on this journey now where you're equipped, ready, and prepared. And so that was really what this whole thing has been about, is not out of a space of having, but rather out of a space of lack that started to create this movement and purpose-driven mission that myself and the rest of our team is on.
You say purpose-driven mission, which is something that we talk a lot about this season in the podcast, is purpose and identity. And do you feel like you have that nailed in your head or for your business, like, this is our purpose, and what is it?
100%. So our purpose is literally to keep tips of the spear sharp, tip of the spear people who are out there making it happen, people who are out there serving, people who are out there doing the thing. They are creators, they are business owners, they are entrepreneurs. They're the ones who are actually leaning into what it is that they've been asked to do. And when you are the tip of the spear person and you're actually out there doing the thing, tips of the spear people get dull. And that's when health starts to go away. Health starts to be pulled. Why? Because if we believe that we are the temple of the Holy Spirit, if we believe in a God that is abundant and exponential in growth, then the business, the mission, the movement that you have today is the smallest it will ever be. And the tool, the vehicle, the vessel that you have been given is the only thing that will continue to be able to make that grow. So what's the enemy going to come after first? And so we want to be that first line of defense for tip of the spear people to keep them sharp.
Amen. So well said. So how do you do it? What are the metrics that you're looking at? And speaking to, I would consider myself a tip of the spear person, but I think a lot of people listening might be like, not so sure. I'm just a regular person. What are the metrics though we should all be looking at?
Yeah. So when you think about this, and again, when I say tip of the spear, yes, business owners, yes, entrepreneurs, yes, people driving movements, but it's people leading families.
Yeah.
It's people leading households. It's people who are leading teams. And I think oftentimes we set ourselves shy on what our actual purpose is. And so we become complacent with what the world has told us. And this is why we often find ourselves exhausted, burnt out, not knowing which way to turn, our hormones all out of whack, this weight that we can't seem to lose. And it all comes back to what we've accepted as normal. And before I dive into some of those metrics, I just want to kind of read something here, because when we think about this concept of how do we actually maintain our health in a powerful way and make sure it's something that we as believers can steward well, it's not as easy as just being able to say, hey, I'm here, hey, I'm doing this, hey, I'm living. But there's a degree of intentionality that's required, because if we were created by an intentional God, then that means that we have to live intentionally to ultimately realize what's on the other side. And so if we asked Satan, what would you do to steal somebody's health? What would you do to steal somebody who is on mission on purpose? What would you do to steal that health from somebody? It's like I hear this voice and it's like, I wouldn't steal it with obvious destruction. It would be through subtle, insidious, and consistent actions that actually encourage neglect and complacency, that ultimately are built on poor decisions that ultimately manifested in something you thought was normal but was actually dysfunctional. And so it would come up in something like creating distraction and busyness, make people feel like they don't have time to prioritize their health, flood their schedules with work, family obligations, with endless distractions that make them feel like self-care is impractical or even selfish. We would normalize unhealthy habits. We'd make poor nutrition, lack of sleep, sedentary lifestyles feel normal and acceptable, market ultra-processed foods as convenient or harmless while glorifying hustle culture that minimizes rest. We'd foster addiction to quick fixes, because if we can convince them that pills, diets, and shortcuts will solve their problems, we ultimately maintain control and taking the control out of the hands of the people that actually have it. We'd plant seeds of doubt and hopelessness, whispering things like, you're too old to get healthy. You've already failed too many times. This is just how life is now. This is what 40 looks like. And defeat people even from trying to start. Or we'd ultimately encourage comparison and shame, saying, hey, social media, cultural standards, this is what you have to look like. If you don't have this, then it actually wasn't something that was created for you, because if it wasn't created for you, then you'll actually stop trying. We're going to make this whole health thing overwhelming. We're going to flood you with contradictory information about health, about fitness, about nutrition. We're going to confuse you with endless options that make you feel paralyzed and ultimately do nothing. We're going to undermine the spiritual and emotional resilience that has to do with the core root of your health. We're going to encourage and even ignore that spiritual root, because at the end of the day, when I can disconnect you from your purpose, from God, from the deeper meaning behind your health, without that why, it's really hard to stay disciplined on the how. And then lastly, I'm going to make sure that I isolate you from community, convincing you that you don't need people, that you don't need support, that you don't need accountability, that you don't need a coach, you don't need a team, you don't need people around you. Because if you don't have people around you, I can make you feel alone. I can actually make you feel alone in your struggles. I can remove the encouragement. I can remove all the things that we need in order to actually feel rooted, grounded, and powerful in this pursuit, this journey of finding what true health actually looks like.